Good evening, good evening. It is another Tuesday evening, and we are going to have another amazing show. I'm just gonna give it a few minutes, and then I'm gonna get started. I hope everybody's been having a good week. I have this headset in, so I'm hoping that I can be heard. I think that I can, but I'm going to double check that I can. There we go. I can be heard, so this is amazing. Hey, what's up? Hi. Thank you, everyone who is joining. Hi, conceited motherfucker. Good evening. Um, I'm hoping to have a good show. Can I say though, I have my vacation here in because I am headed on an amazing vacation with my daughter. We're leaving for Cancun on Thursday morning on the first flight out of Toronto. We will be out on the first thing smoking at 6 a.m. So I'm truly looking forward to my vacation to Cancun. Listen, expect a bunch of pictures and a bunch of videos because we are going to be living our best life. It is Valentine's Day tomorrow, so I want to say happy Valentine's Day to all of my married and in relationship folks. Although I am not a big fan of Valentine's Day and I do not celebrate Valentine's Day, for those of you who celebrate Valentine's Day, I hope that you are going to have an amazing day. I hope you make every day amazing, but I hope you have an amazing day. Hey, Shelby, I do hope that everybody has an amazing Valentine. Remember that Valentine's is every day, and you have an opportunity every day to show someone that you love them. So please don't let that just be on Valentine's Day. So I will start there. Um, this is going to be either a really good show. Thank you. I have not had a vacation with my daughter. Someone just said congrats on my vacation. I have not had a vacation with my daughter. Hi, Dean. How are you, handsome? I have not had a vacation with my daughter since 2021 when we were in Vegas. I started having a yearly mother daughter trip with her when she was 13 because I knew one day she was going to grow up and have her own family and I would be one day watching my grandkids as she goes off with her husband. And so I wanted to institute something that was really important to the both of us. And I'm still happy that at 22 years old, she still wants to hang out with mom and do things with mom. So um, this is amazing. So I'm really looking forward to time with my daughter, time away, time to relax because it's been a hell of a last year or so. Um, but getting to the topic, Black women, why don't we get married? So people are either going to like this topic or they're not. Again, my concept of this show is to change the conversation around Black relationships, and I'm going to do that every week, whether people like it or not. This was inspired by a clip that I saw that I'm going to play shortly, and it was where a Black woman was speaking over another video of several different white women from a graduating class that were showing their engagement rings. And she goes into a number of factors why she believes Black women are not getting married at the rate of white women. I then did a little bit of research. I didn't do a ton. It was a busy, then it's only Tuesday, but work has been busy because I am off on Thursday. But I did a little bit of research, and there were a couple of reasons that they were saying that Black women specifically were not getting married. And then I came up with a few questions that I think it is important to ask if you're looking to become a wife and be married. And then I actually also sat down and randomly thought of 10 random women in my life, whether they were in my family, women that are close friends, or just acquaintances. Um, I was one of the 10 women, and I just wrote down their name and their marital status to see in my own circle of friends of Black women what the marriage rate was. And again, it's really close friends, family, and acquaintances that I randomly just selected. I just started thinking of people and writing their names down. and then I wrote down their marital status, and I'm actually going to share kind of my own little mini research. It's only 10 people, so it's not a great sample size, but just a quick um, research of that. So I'm going to start with this video. I am going to say that this young lady was speaking very quickly, so I'm hoping that you will be able to understand her as she speaks. Thank you, Toronto Mermaid. She said she loves the braids. It's my vacation here, girl. I'm going to Cancun on Thursday to go spend 4 nights away with my baby girl, who's not a baby girl because she's 22. So I had to get it together so I can be on these people's beach, okay? Nothing's gonna hold me back with no fluffy hair in Cancun. We're gonna kill it. Anywho, so I am going to play this video. Nothing's gonna hold me back. Okay, I don't see. I got the show on in the background. So I'm gonna play this video, and then again, I am going to say she is speaking quite fast. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to understand. And again, she comes up with a variety of reasons that she thinks that Black women are unmarried. And we're going to discuss that a little bit. And then I'm going to go in to some research that I did. So give me 1 second. I'm going to pull it up. Um, it starts very, very quickly. So give me a moment. Give me a second. I actually want to rewind it, and here we go. Hold on. Actually, let me do that again. Let me turn it up. Okay, we're gonna start it over. At 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go.
Group of white girls who are sitting at their graduation engaged. And the question came up, well, why is it not the reality for Black women? I know y'all not gonna like what I gotta say, but you know me, I'm gonna say it anyways. First and foremost, Black women are above reproach. If they don't validate us or excuse our bad behavior, we don't want to hear it. Instead, we'll say, well, men do it too. Secondly, we'll find every excuse in the world to validate why we don't want to be married or why we don't want to be in a relationship. Well, they get cheated on. Well, they do this. Well, they do that. But then we have all these standards for men, and we're still actively seeking for men in the midst of our hurt while inadvertently telling them to go to therapy. We do not practice what we preach. Thirdly, the independent woman is a myth. Actually cared about being independent and it was something that made you happy, you would not have all these standards to negate your independence. Nobody wants to relinquish power. I find every excuse in the world to not be submissive and wonder why white women can get away with their bad behavior. We take everything bad from white women, except for the fact using marriage to our own benefit. But you'll run to the child support office though. Get equality against men, and the only time we actually want to be equal to men is when it comes to degenerate behavior, hypersexuality, abusing or abandoning children. Even when it comes to the gold digger conversation, what you don't see those other women do, even when they are just screwing men for money, is bashing men, inadvertently making men feel like they're not important. Also, too, telling them that they don't need men. Psychologically, we have been taught to disassociate ourselves. And even in that Malcolm X quote, where he says the Black woman is the most disrespected, he also says to be near your man. Because who taught you to hate the very race?
Okay, well, as you can see, the video sort of ends before she finishes her rant. We need to take a moment and digest what it is um, that this young lady has said. I'm actually going to take a moment to say that I sit here with a different perspective because of my life experience. My life experience is not that of a Black American woman, and a lot of these videos speaks to the Black American woman experience, of which I am not. I am a Jamaican born woman who grew up in Toronto, Canada, who's had the privilege of spending some time in the US with my husband and my ex fiance, my now ex fiance. And so I've had experiences in the US as a Black woman, but I am not what you would call a Black American woman. And so when I talk about my experience, it is not that of a Black American woman. I don't speak for Black American women. I can speak for as a Black woman who is dating, but I cannot speak specifically to the Black American woman experience because I am not a Black American woman. So I wanna start there. Um, and a lot of the time, that's um, the dominant conversation that we're hearing is from a Black American woman perspective. Um, and I think it is probably a unique perspective that I will not pretend that I understand, but I will say that a black woman generally dating, being in a marriage, being in long-term, committed relationship. I think a lot of things that this young lady just said is interesting, and I'm going to start with the independent black woman concept. In my book, No Handouts for Black Girls, let me just scroll on over here so you can see the book again. Any chance I get, I'm going to plug my book. So in my book, No Handouts for Black Girls, I talk about the myth of the independent black woman. And I talk about the fact that it is our kryptonite. It is something that has been passed on to us, but it is not something that we should hold on like it's a badge of honor. And I'm trying to find the article that I talk about that. But I think one of the things that is being used is that I am independent and therefore I don't need anyone. Independent means alone. And I don't really want to go into this, but let's really talk about the fact that um, you can't be independently want to raise a bunch of children. A woman who truly desires independence doesn't want dependence. They don't want anybody depending on them. They want to do life alone. Independent literally means alone. And so when you hear women say that I'm an independent black woman, it's actually a defense mechanism to not deal with the fact that they are alone despite not wanting to be alone. And so there is a myth, like there is a myth that we are strong and independent and we can't be vulnerable. And I talk about in the book where it's like we feel as if white women had cornered the market on vulnerability, which left us nothing. We had to be independent. And it was this narrative that we were supposed to take on, right? And we don't. Okay. I'm going to actually, let me find it. Um, Let me find actually what I write about it. So I'm going to read actually what I said in the book. I'm going to try not to read too much, but I really want to get to the point where I talk about this concept. And if you have not gotten this book, please support me and get this book. No Handouts for Black Girls. Let me find this here, and I'm going to read it. Here we go. Okay. Sorry. Oh. Sorry, I'm literally looking for the top. That's really important. Okay. Okay, here we go. We have been carrying around the title of strong black women like some fucking badge of honor for generations. And that damn title is a fallacy. Yes, I called it a fallacy. It's an egregious lie that has only served to harm us more than help. We have been running around trying to save everyone and their mama like some damn superhero, with babies on our tits and backs, all while cooking, cleaning, teaching, healing, never once stopping to realize that we are broken and dying inside and in need of some help of our own. We have so convinced society we don't need anyone's help that when we do put our hands that when we do put our hands out for assistance, we're given a high five instead of a helping hand. That same hand we need to save us from drowning because our rescuers don't realize and we stubbornly refuse to tell them our black asses can't swim. We've been such great actors and have convinced everyone around us, including ourselves, that we are the only ones suited to play the role of a warrior princess. Like, what the fuck? Who would it be if not her? White women have cornered the market on vulnerability and fragility, so that role is taken. What else? Sorry, what else we got? I continue on to say, one of my all-time favorite movies is The Usual Suspects, and in it, a character by the name of Verbal, played by actor Kevin Spacey, delivers one of my favorite lines. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he did not exist. Well, the greatest trick the world has pulled on us is making us believe that in order to get respect in the world, we need to be strong, brave, and show everyone we out here taking no prisoners. Well, what has been strong done for us? It's gotten us cast in the role of Captain Save 'em All, expected to show up for everyone and their mama, even if they don't show up for us. Cue every American election since women won the right to vote. Where it's gotten us is in a place of constantly accepting back-breaking work, applauded for our resilience when we handle this shit like no one else wants, and left out of the running when raises and awards are being doled out. Sorry, this light is in my eye. Where it has gotten us is not being recognized for causes we give birth to, like babies breathing life and meaning into them, only to have them hijacked by white women who swoop in and take credit for our work. Where it has gotten us is on a health watch list that has us being disproportionately affected by illnesses like everything from heart disease, stroke, diabetes to fibroids and breast cancer, not to mention mental illness. Add that to the top of the list because, after all, Black women don't go to therapy, we go to church. Without the strong Black woman narrative, the world would not be where it is today. All it takes is a Google search to see the impact we've made over centuries, contributing our billions while others reap billions. We've been instrumental in nurturing the world's great ideas and haven't got the net worth to show for it. What price are we willing to continue to pay? And then I continue to say, the way I see it, the title of the Strong Black Woman itself isn't the problem, it's the persona that's problematic. Being strong requires a level of energy that cannot be sustained without taking its toll. And that was a lot. I wasn't expecting to read all of that. But the toll that being the strong, independent Black woman is taken is us being the least married and having the highest rate of single parent homes. And as much as you might see women on Kendra G talking about they make six figures, a lot of those women are lying. They do not make six figures because Black women are taking back-breaking work for less money. We are paid disproportionately less than our white female counterparts. I'm not going to compare it to males, but our white female counterparts. And so, despite what these social media people might tell you, there are not a bunch of Black women running around making six figures unless they are professional Black women. All the Black women that I know who make six figures have professions: lawyers, doctors, and believe it or not, teachers like vice principals and CPAs or entrepreneurs. They're the ones making six figures. Regular, degular, 9 to 5, there is not a bunch of them just running around making six figures. And so the impact of the strong, just that part of what this young lady said, the impact of the strong, independent Black woman narrative have robbed Black women, and I'm putting it in quotations, a lot of this, has robbed Black women of being able to sit in their femininity. I'm going to pause for dramatic effect. And create an environment that a man would want to make them their wife. It's funny because my ex went to a predominantly white university. So he was recruited to play basketball at this predominantly white university in North Carolina. And he went from Rochester, New York, that's predominantly Black, to this school, Asheville, in North Carolina, that's predominantly white. And he would tell me about the experiences that he had at that predominantly white university, and how there would be women in that university that were willing to use their mouth on him, but would not give them access to their vajayjay because according to them, their family and they already had plans to whom they were going to get married to when they finished university. They were either in university to find a husband or they were going back home to wherever they're from and their family had already kind of prepared them to be married and they were not going to ruin their vajayjay by having sex with a black man, knowing that they were going to go home and marry Chad or Brad or whomever their family had set them up with. And these were 18, 19, 20-year-old women who already were thinking about marriage, who were already making decisions as young women about how they were going to live their future. And he said he found it fascinating because it was the opposite for the black women who were trying to get with him. The black women who were trying to get with him were quick to try to bring him to bed and potentially get pregnant by him because they saw the NBA in his future being a 6'9" black man who played NCAA Division I basketball, right? And they were quick to bet him and talk about babies, and they were not talking about marriage. These white women were very clear that they wanted marriage. And a lot of them left that university and went off to get married. And the black women left that university. Either they had to drop out because they were pregnant or eventually became mothers, not wives. What's the priority that you have in life? That's that's about being married. Like I stopped and I said, okay, let me do some research and let me see what women are saying as to why black women are not getting married. And I will say the couple of articles I read were all written by women. So I'm going to tell you what black women who were writing articles about black women not getting married were saying as to why black women are not married. So the first one on the list in no particular order is colorism. There was this concept that dark skinned black women were disproportionately married less than lighter skinned black women because for black women who desire black men generally desire lighter skinned women. And so it left darker skinned women at a disadvantage for getting married. I'm not going to say I agree or disagree with any of this. I'm just going to tell you what these articles were saying. Another comment that was made was mass incarceration. People were saying in these articles that because of the fact that they felt that black men were incarcerated more than any other race, it left slim pickings for black women who wanted to be married. So that was number two. And number three reason, which we've heard over and over again, especially since the rise of the podcast and Kevin Samuels, we all remember, I'm a PhD, right? That was one of Kevin Samuels' favorite sound bites was this woman saying she was a PhD, which is always funny to me. So you know where I'm going with this one. One of the reasons these articles are saying that black women are not getting married is because black women are more educated than their black male counterparts. And therefore, this concept of the educated black woman having to marry down because of that. And I will tell you, as a black woman who went to university and got a degree, it doesn't make us smarter. A degree these days don't mean shit. Like, I'm going to be honest. It is nice to have. Mine is up there along with my daughter's. If I were to turn the camera, my degree and my daughter's degree is up there. We went to the same university. We took the same program. It is something that my father said that in order for me to be a good wife, he wanted me to be an educated wife. And my father always pushed education, but my father pushed education so that I could be a helpmate to my one day powerful husband. Daddy, I'm still working on that. So that's why my father pushed education. So, but this idea of bearing down is another reason why they're saying black women are not getting married. Another one was desirability. This concept that black men don't desire black women, which is not true. Because when I read you the facts, the numbers that I did for my random top 10, there is only one couple that is married on this list that is interracial. Only one. And I'm going to tell you how many people again, on here, out of my 10 random people that I chose in my life that are married, only one of the couples that I'm going to tell you is married is interracial. And it's actually a black woman and a white man and not the opposite. So this idea of desirability, again, is another reason that they're saying black women are not getting married. Another thing that they brought back was systemic racism. Apparently, systemic racism is playing a role as to why black women, and again, these articles are speaking more in line with America. They're not a global concept of why black women are not getting married. Again, a lot of the information you find is based on American culture. So again, take this with a grain of salt if you are not American. So systemic racism is another reason. Um, and then another concept was, and in this particular article, they were talking about the expense of wedding and everything that goes into a wedding, and saying that marriage is a white thing. Yes, the article actually says that with the expense of marriage and because of socialism and social class structure, that the cost of a wedding makes marriage a white thing, which led me to saying this and asking this question to women who are saying that they want to be married but can't find a desirable spouse. The question that led me to was, do you want to be married or do you want to be a wife? Because when people think about the idea of marriage, they think about the wedding. They don't think about the part that they play in the marriage, the husband and the wife. People think about the wedding component of a marriage and not the lifetime commitment of being husband and wife. And I will tell you, as someone who's been married, who got married in a chapel in Vegas, and I want to say between our marriage certificate and my wedding dress, and I think the actual ceremony, we probably spent about $200. I got married in a orange dress because orange was my husband's favorite color. He was from Texas, and he loved that burnt orange, that Texas color. So I wore an orange dress that I got in Vegas. We got married in a Vegas chapel, and that's what we did, because the marriage we were supposed to have wasn't as important as the wedding, because our thing was we could have the wedding later, but we were invested in being husband and wife, not having this big concept of what a wedding is. And I think we need to get out of our minds of having a 20,000, 50,000, 40,000, 15,000, 5,000. The amount of money that you spend on your wedding does not correlate to success in marriages. Your marriage will not be more or less successful if you get married at a courthouse versus if you have a $50,000 wedding with 250 people there to watch you. And so when I literally read that an article talking about marriage among black women, saying that marriage is a white thing because of the fact that the expense that's associated with having a wedding, I'm like, I don't know what it costs to go get your marriage license in a city near you, but I don't even think it costs $100. So if you're truly ready to be married and be a wife or be a husband, there is no major expense related to that. So I just thought that's not a reason, that's an excuse. So I decided to sit down in my own personal life and write down 10 random people and 10 random women, let me be clear, 10 random women, and beside their name, I put their current marital status. Toronto Mermaid. I would rather put that money in premarital counseling. Preach, girl, because you're in a space that you understand that you're ready to be a wife, you just don't want to be married, and that's a major difference that I'm going to get to. So the 10 random women, I'm not going to tell you their names, but I am one of the random women that is in this sample. Of the 10 random women that I wrote down, 6 are married, 3 have never been married, and 1, me, is divorced. All Black women, 3 are actually in my family, funny enough. And the 3 in my family, 2 are married and 1 is never married, and I am divorced. So of 4 of my sisters, and I have 6 sisters, I'm the seventh from my dad. Um, of the 4 of us, 3 of us have been married. 1, me, is divorced. 2 are still married, and 1 of my sisters has never been married. So just in my family alone, marriage has been a thing. So I look at the people that I surround myself with, and 60% again of these 10 have been married. And I think we need to figure out if as Black women we are in a space that we want to be married, find married people. Find married people to get inspiration from. Just find them, seek them out, right? When you don't have knowledge, where do you go? You go and seek knowledge. When you want to learn something, you go to the place where you can learn it. You read a book. I'm looking over there at my bookshelf where I have plenty of how-to books. You utilize this wonderful internet that I'm on, being able to bring you this show. You go to YouTube, you go to wherever you go, right? And you find the knowledge. I have done courses on Google. I have done courses on Coursera. I have gone to online universities, right? Like I went to Cornell online to be able to get a certificate in women's entrepreneurship. I went to university and got a degree in psychology. Like when we want knowledge, we go out and we seek it. So if you want to be a wife, you go out and you seek the knowledge to prepare you to become a wife. Being a wife is just as important as being a lawyer. And here is the thing that is getting us. White women are getting married more because they understand that concept. White women in university are just as interested in the topic at hand as they are finding a husband that they have commonalities with. They are in those university classrooms studying the men in that classroom as much as they're studying their books. They are darting through Brad and Chad and whomever else and Bradley and Sullivan and whomever they meet across in their study group, and they're figuring out who the head guy potentially is in the fraternity is. They're looking at the guy in the chess club and the hockey team and there's another game I can't remember that white people play, but they're out there and they're trying to figure out would we be a good match, and they're making themselves seen and they're making themselves available and they are showing up and they're going to where those men are so that they can be seen. They are focused on marriage just as much as they are focused on their education. So they make marriage a priority. And based on this, and I'm sorry, I'm coming, Shelby, to that comment. Let me just pull up this, right? Like they make marriage a priority, and these other women are not. So on YouTube here, Shelby is asking me a question. Okay, do you feel or think, based on what's presented on social media, that Black women value marriage and being a wife? Solely what's presented on social media, no. If I were to look at a show like Kendra G, and I've said this before on Kendra G's channel, I have said on Kendra G's channel, if you were to be a non-American Black woman and you watch Kendra G's show as a way to determine, what's going on with Black women in America, what you would see is multiple baby mama having barely educated, does superficial black women. That's what's being portrayed on black. And it's at least what is made popular. Because I also follow channels like Black Love. I also follow things like Dear Future Wifey podcast, right? Like I follow those things that focus on the concept of love. Owen has a show about black love, right? Like I watch shows like Ready to Love, which is focused on black love, which has become very dramatic. But like I try to consume things that are about love, but the narrative that's being pushed and the shows that are more popular are the shows that are showing the destruction of love. I'm going to go here to Toronto Mermaid, and she's saying, listen, my graduating program in university had 5 couples who were engaged by our graduation date. White women are groomed early. I said what I said, and you're right. Drops mic. Drops mic. The narrative that's being given to us versus the narrative that's being given to our white counterparts when it comes to finding love is different. They make love and marriage a priority. We make education and independence a priority. And it led me to one of the other questions that I had, right? So the first question that I asked was, do you want to be married or do you want to be a wife? If you are a black woman who's truly seeking to be married, is it about being married so you can have a ring on your hand and say, I'm married? Or is it because you want to be a wife? Because if you want to be a wife, the ring on your finger doesn't matter if it came out of a Cracker Jack box or if you went to Tiffany's and bought it for $25,000. None of that matters because your goal is to be a wife. So that's the first question you need to ask yourself. Leading to another question is, are you marriage material? And if no, what are you doing to become marriage material? So, as I was referring to earlier, I already had 6 people on a list of 10 in my life, in my close enough circle, that are wives. I have my friend's parents. My parents never got married. If you watch previous show, you'll know my story. My parents never got married, but I actually grew up seeing marriage because my dad married my stepmom. And just so you don't go back, I'm the product of an affair. My parents had an affair. That's how I was born. But I was actually raised for the first part of my life by my stepmom and my father in a very nuclear family with my 2 older sisters that were born out of the marriage between my stepmom and my dad. And I call my stepmom mama. I still refer to her as mom because she is my mom, right? And so I still grew up in a nuclear family despite the fact that I was born out of an affair. So I saw marriage and I appreciated marriage. And I saw my father being a husband, right? And I had a father, right? A very active one. And in my life right now, again, 6 people up on my top 10 list here of women that I know in my life that are married, 2 of whom are in my own immediate family, another one being my best friend, another one being a very close personal friend. Like I want to be a wife. I've been a wife. I desire to be a wife again. And so I go and I surround myself with people who are wives to get advice from women who are wives, to find out how they navigate being a wife, not just being married, but being a wife. How do they deal with conflict in their marriage? I take a look and figure out, how did I deal with conflict when I was in my marriage? Did I deal with conflict effectively, right? Was I ready for the growth that happens in marriages? Because we grow. Are we asking each other the tough questions? When I am looking at dating right now, and why am I dating? Am I dating for the purposes of getting a free meal, or am I dating for the purposes of having something of value, a husband? Like, what is it that we're doing? And again, if you're in a space where you feel, you know what, I want to be a wife, but I'm not quite there yet, what are you doing to prepare yourself to be a wife? Because a marriage is not just the wedding and the title, it's the work that goes into it. So, another question I would ask again Black women, if you want to be married, is what does being a wife mean? What does it mean to be a wife? Does it mean you're being a supporter? Does it mean you're a nurturer? Does it mean that you're a safe space? Does it mean that you're at peace? Or does it mean for you that you've got someone to take care of you, to pay your bills, to, give you the love that your dad didn't give you? Like, really, what does it mean to be a wife? How do you envision yourself as a wife? What are the qualities and characteristics that would make you a good wife? What are the aspects of you that you would need to work on to ensure that you are a good wife? Like, are you actually asking yourself those questions as opposed to, I just want to be married, or I don't want to be married because men ain't shit, and men don't make good husbands, and all of this. Like really, what do you want? Have you sat down with yourself in a quiet place and really took the time to ask yourself the questions that would be necessary to make you marriageable? It is not enough to want to be married. You need to actually be someone's wife. And what does that mean to be someone's wife? And not just someone's wife. Let me actually bring that back. What does it mean to be a wife to the man that you want? Because I will say every week, a lot of us want men who don't want us. And we are not willing to become the thing that the men that we want. Because we feel that a man, if he's a real man, right? I hear that term a lot. And ladies of Fuck Your Feelings, the show, please do not say that to men, because it is not our place to say and define what a real man is. We do not have penises. We do not know, especially to a black man. I think that is the most disrespectful thing to say to a black man is, if you were a real man, or a real man would do this. It is hard enough being a black woman. I would not trade places with a black man under any circumstances, but I want to walk around this world being a black man and carrying the burden of a black man. So how dare we turn around to black men and say, well, if you were a real man? How are they fake? How are they fake black men? I think that's just a ridiculous sentiment to make. But let me get off my soapbox for a second. But let's really start figuring out, what does it mean to be a wife? The next question I want black women to ask themselves is, would you marry yourself in your current state? So, okay, you want to be a wife. Would you marry you? Could you live peacefully with you? And peace is such an important component of my life. So I can only imagine for a man how important it is to have peace. I always say I offer a man three things: peace, respect, and no matter what happens to him, I will leave him better than I found him. Because so many of us go into people's lives and leave them worse than we found them. We bring so much turmoil and baggage and drama and chaos into their life that they are a shell of themselves after we've left. We come in like the Tasmanian devil and go, wreck everything, and then leave someone's life. I have vowed that I don't do that. That's not what I do. My job is to leave you better than I found you. That is my job. However, I think a lot of us, again, are focused on the marriage and not the being a wife part. Would you marry yourself, lady? Miss Lady, any woman watching this who wants to be a wife, who is a black woman who wants to be a wife, would you marry yourself? When you put your most desirable traits on a piece of paper versus your undesirable traits, if you were to present this like a wife resume to a man that you want, would he accept you? Really? Write a wife resume. We write resumes for our jobs. We put all of our desirable skills and all the things that we've done and all the things, and then we have references. If your future husband were to call one of your exes or several of your exes, because for a professional position, they generally ask you for three references now. I recently got a job. I mean, it's not recent, but the job that I have now, I got back in June of last year. And I had three references and they called all three of them so that they could compare and contrast what all three of my references said. And they wrote that shit down and they compared it against what it is that they required in the job. So if you were to write your wife's resume with your desirable traits and your undesirable traits and you put it out into the world and your skill set and your experience and you put references on there and you presented it in front of this type of man that you wanted to be your husband, would you get hired for the job? Thank you, Toronto Mermaid. It's a job. It is a position in a man's life that he needs to fill, and he does not need to fill it with you, especially if we're all dating the same type of men. If the reality is true that we're all dating the same type of 6'5", and we want the 6'5" and 6'3" and 6'9", and I say those heights because I've had them all. God, thank you, Jesus. And we want the educated and the well-spoken. Again, those of us who are not into the thug life and want to make chaos for ourselves. I don't date thugs and drug dealers and scammers. That is not me. It's not been me. It's not what my life is about. I like my freedom, and nobody's going to raid my house. So not me, no thank you. But if you want the type of men, again, that would make your father or mother proud or be a great representation for your children, are you the type of woman that that man wants? So if you put your wife's resume in front of him, would he choose you? And if he did not choose you, why? Would you be willing to take the constructive criticism and go back and better yourself? Are you the type of person who would be willing to give him the phone number of your exes to call? Three. I could name three of my exes right now that I would have no problem if my future husband came along and said, you know what? To get to understand who you are, who you were, in your maybe 20s, who you were in your 30s, who you were recently, give me the number of your exes. I would give them my daughter's father. I would give them my ex-boyfriend after my daughter's father. And I don't know if he would take their call, but my most recent fiance, I would give them the fiance before that. I've got a list of probably 5 guys that I have no problem saying, call all of them. They've experienced me good, bad, and different. Have a conversation with them. Have them be my reference. Because I've always been proud of how I've conducted myself in a relationship. Thank you. Give me 1 second. I have to unpin. I have to unpin. See, I don't know how to do some of this. Okay, I think I can remove this and then I can pin again. So there we go. Replace pin message. Shelby says, I see you creating an ebook or a workbook on this particular subject matter. It's going to be a part of my book. So I'm going to be doing some work on this book on my trip to Cancun. And again, Fuck Your Feelings, The Journey to Imperfect Love. A lot of what I talk about is actually going to be in this book. And I am going to create kind of a question workbook component to the book. I'm working out to see how that looks. But again, I desire love for everybody who watches my show. And if I can do something to help that, I'm definitely going to do that. So please, again, watch out for the book, Fuck Your Feelings, The Journey to Imperfect Love. I will give you an exact release date when it becomes close, but I'm looking at summer of this year. So I have a few months to get it together. So another thing that I want you to ask yourself, Black woman, if you want to be married, is what does better or worse look like for you? I can tell you recently I have been saddened of seeing weddings of Black people where Black women have insisted on taking out the better or worse, or they laugh through that part, and the richer or poorer, and the to obey. I've seen several viral weddings online, and people think that those parts are so hilarious. Oh, she doesn't want to obey. For better or worse, what does that mean? Ha ha ha! And it's a big joke. Marriage is not a joke. Marriage is not a joke. Weddings are not jokes. Shit, as expensive as weddings are, I was just planning one. Trust me, they are not a joke. And so, if you're going to go into a marriage, what does better or worse look like for you? Is cheating the worst? And are you willing to give up a 10-year marriage for one indiscretion? Is that your worst? Is not feeling loved, appreciated, honored over a period of time in a relationship your worst? Is him working too hard and traveling too much your like what is your worth? Because until you define your worth, how can you enjoy your best? It's funny, there are certain things that we're willing to tolerate from jobs and from employers that we won't tolerate from the man who chooses us to be their wife. Now, there's certain things that were intolerable. For those of you wondering, like, girl, you're divorced, who you talk? Um, my husband not only cheated, he had three outside babies, one that was confirmed by DNA before I left him. The twins, I did not stick around to find out if they were his. I went into a marriage and we both had one child each, and I left that marriage and there were potentially a total of five children. I still left with only one. So, yes, that was my worst. One I could have accepted, three was way too much. The cheating I may have been able to deal with on a certain level. The circumstances around how the babies were born, like, no, that was my worst. I had already defined my worst. My husband knew I was going to leave. When the two babies popped up, I think he knew I have lost my wife. She's not sticking around for this. No, thank you. But what's your worst? And having a conversation with the person you're about to marry and say, listen, I know we're going to have bad times, and I need you to understand that this is what the worst looks like for me. And if we're going to walk down this aisle, you need to understand that if this were to be a part of our life, we are getting divorced. This is a good question. Thank you. And welcome, Riley. Do you think Black women are tired to be emotionally invested? So, do you think Black women are tired to be emotionally invested? Okay. I am not going to speak for all Black women. I am going to speak for myself, and I'm going to speak for, on behalf of the women that are close to me. I will speak for myself first. Um, no. To answer the question directly, am I tired of being emotionally invested? No, because I have a choice to determine who I emotionally invest myself into, right? I choose the men I allow into my life. I am the barrier to entry of my life. No one can barge themselves into my life that I don't let in. And therefore, I am able to take a look at the men who want to be in my life and look at their character, listen to what they value in life, look at their actions, listen to their words, take a look at how they have the life they've created for themselves. Like, I get to do all of that. I get to survey the land of men that want to be in my life, and then I get to either turn the doorknob and open the door to let them in or lock them out permanently. So I can say for myself, I have no problems being emotionally invested in a man because I thoroughly vetted and evaluated him as much as I possibly can, understanding that to experience great love, you may also have to experience great loss. And I'm okay with both. I'm okay with experiencing great loss if it means that on the other end, I also have the opportunity to experience great love. Therapy taught me that. Let me tell you, therapy is an amazing tool. I recommend it highly. Best investment I've made other than my education and getting my degree was in therapy. It's an amazing tool that we all need to have. So I can speak for myself. I think women as a whole will get tired of being emotionally invested because they are emotionally invested into men who are not emotionally invested into them, into men who are telling them that they don't want to be emotionally invested into men, into men that they're giving their bodies to who will not give them their heart. As I said on last week's show, dating is not as complicated as we've made it. It really isn't as complicated as we've made it. My life is a consequence of my choices. My life is a consequence of my choices. I sit here in front of you today, able to have this discussion based on the life experience that I've had, based on the choices that I have made. I'm able to speak about divorce because I chose marriage. I can't speak about divorce if I didn't choose marriage. I'm able to talk about certain aspects of my life because of choices that I've made, because of experiences that I've had. We can make different choices. It's just that simple. I have always been a person that just because a man shows me shiny, bright things doesn't mean I'm gonna fall for shiny and bright. Okay, I'm ready for the question, Riley. Let me wait for the question, right? Like shiny and bright doesn't always get my attention because fool's gold is shiny and bright. And a lot of women are falling in love with what they see and not what they're hearing and not what he's doing. Because love is a verb. Love is actionable. Love is not just a noun that exists. Love is an actionable item. When someone says that they love you, they have to show up and show you they love you. What traits are they using to show you they love you? A lot of you are taking love as a noun, but it's a verb, it's an action. So I find it difficult to feel sorry for people who made choices that they know were counterproductive to the results that they wanted in life. If you want a relationship with a man, it is counterproductive to lead with sex. If that man simply doesn't want a relationship with you, sex is not going to make him want a relationship with you. I desire a long-term relationship. I actually desire marriage. And in order to get married, I have to be in a relationship. I don't desire a situationship. And so I don't put myself in situations to get situationships. And I put that very much out there. A guy took me out yesterday and we were, asking questions, getting to know each other. I said, just so you're clear, I only have sex when I'm in relationships. And you can have sex with as many women as you choose to, but understand that you're not having sex with me until we have both sat down and determined that this is something that we want to do and do together. Okay, the next question. Okay, let me replace. Okay, Riley, let me see what you say here. And I'm really going to try. Okay, do you think it's okay for Black men to be emotionally available to his woman instead of being emotionally unavailable? Or do you want a man to be a balanced and healthy, not toxic and dysfunctional? Here's the thing. The most healthy aspects of a relationship is if people are both emotionally available. You cannot have an emotionally unavailable person and an emotionally available person in a relationship. That's a recipe for disaster. With that said, I have found in my personal experience that in order for a lot of men to feel as if they can truly be emotionally available, the women that they're with has to create a safe space for them to be vulnerable. And often there are a lot of women who mistake vulnerability for weakness because they mistake it for that in themselves. I just talked about it in the book, right? A lot of black women feel as if white women have cornered the market on femininity and vulnerability, and so they have to be strong. And these Xena Princess Warrior. I'm old, so for those of you who are not as old as I am, there was a show called Xena Princess Warrior, and it was this very strong Amazonian type woman, right? Like it's all about strength. And because we put those barriers up for ourselves, we expect the same of our men. And so we do not necessarily create an environment where a man can be vulnerable and open because here's the thing, being open and honest and free to be able to express your feelings is a sign of emotional maturity. It's a huge sign of emotional maturity. Being able to express your feelings despite the name of the show. I care about people's feelings. For those of you who are new to the show, the concept of fuck your feelings was derived from the idea behind me and my ex talking about often what happens in relationship when people are communicating is when you're expressing how you feel about a situation or what's going on in the relationship, often the other person invalidates your feelings because something you said hurt theirs. So the concept of fuck your feelings is to be able to listen to your partner, to understand, not to respond. Therefore, when your partner is expressing themselves, you do not get to invalidate their feelings with your own. And so part of an emotionally mature relationship is vulnerability. It is openness. It is honesty. And it's the other person creating a safe space for you to be able to do that. So the same way as women, we expect our men to create spaces, safe spaces for us, they expect the same. So I'm going to be honest, I can't be with a man who feels that he has to hide his emotions because I understand what the world does to you as black men. And the type of black men that I date, that I attract, that are going out into the world and sometimes are the only black men in the spaces that they go through on a daily basis because they're in the corporate world. I know that I need to be a safe space for them for when they come home, whatever that looks like. So Toronto Mermaid is saying, emotional intelligence and maturity is high on my list. I want to desire to be a safe space in my partner, and I expect the same. Amen. Sorry, Riley. I answered your question, Riley. Please let me know if you want to continue, but I'm hoping that I answered your question there. I think there's some more questions that I am missing, but I'm going to see them in a second. So I'm actually going to move on to the other things. So I want to make sure. Thank you guys for actually joining and having this conversation. Um, Another thing, question I want to ask before I get to some of the questions out here is, as a black woman, you need to ask yourself, did your parents or parents prepare you for marriage? So you're going to ask yourself, did my parents or parents, if you didn't have both of your parents in your life, did they prepare me for marriage? Again, if they did not, how are you going to prepare yourself for marriage? And that goes back to a show I had a few weeks ago where I talked about writing a letter to love so that you can reconcile what your relationship with love is. Because many of us are desiring something that based on a concept that we don't even understand what our relationship with this concept of love is. So you need to figure out, have you been ill prepared for the concept of marriage? Because if you are, you better bet damn well go get prepared before you end up in a situation and you don't even know how to coincide with the person you say you love the most because your concept of marriage and love is so skewed because grew up in chaos. Um, Shelby, okay. Um, Okay, I think I might have missed a couple of things. Hopefully, I didn't miss anything. Um, okay, so Shelby, for some reason, I didn't see your comment on here, so I'm going to read the comment that Shelby has, and I'm going to try to pin it. There we go. I pinned it, so hopefully it actually shows up on my screen here. Okay, so Shelby's saying, it does appear here in America that Black women do not care about a Black man's vulnerability to create that safe space. I'm not saying it ain't happening, it doesn't appear to be happening. I'm going to challenge you a little bit on that. What type of Black women are you choosing to bring into your safe space? Right? Remember, I said earlier, answering Riley's question, I am the barrier to entry to the people who come into my life. And I use certain characteristics and traits and values to evaluate someone to say, Toshiba, is this someone you are going to bring into your life? And there's a beautiful poem that says, people come into our life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, right? And so, Shelby, if it is your experience that you're finding women that you're bringing into your space are not able to create a safe space for you, then you have to ask yourself, why do you keep choosing those types of women to be in your space? On this show, I want us to take self accountability. It is so easy to project onto other people, but I am the common denominator in all of my failed relationships, every single one. If I have had, 5 failed relationships in the last 20 years, I am the common denominator in all 5 of my failed relationships. And so it can't individually be just these 5 people. There has to be something within me that's either attracting those people or not being insightful enough to not just let them into my life, right? Like, I get it. I get for a man because, listen, I'm a woman who also desires physical attractiveness. If I were to line up the men that I have had in my life, they have something very much in common. If I were to line up my daughter's father, my ex-husband, and my 2 former fiancés, all 4 of these men are going to have something in common. They're all over 6 feet tall, and they're all attractive. That's just on their basic commonality. They're going to range in height from the shortest is 6'3", the tallest is 6'9", and they will vary in levels of attractiveness, but they will be fairly attractive men, right? That's the commonality they have. And other than that, they're very, very different. So I understand the need to want attractiveness, but what other criteria are you evaluating the people that you bring into your life? Because at some point, that woman, through her actions and her words, are going to show you she's not a safe space. It's not just going to pop up, right? It isn't going to pop up one day that you've invested time and she's been a safe space, safe space, safe space, and then all of a sudden she's not a safe space. She was never a safe space. She simply was never a safe space. Let me actually put it up here so we can see. I'm doing a better job. Here we go. Of being able to pin these messages. So Shelby has says, great point. I'm reassessing my measuring stick, meaning why I am attracted to who I'm attracted to and why I choose those particular ones. We all have to do that, right? Like I've had to reevaluate some things in my life. I do this all the time. As I get older, as I mature, because being old doesn't mean that you mature. I've had to take a look at certain things. And again, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. A lot of us are living our an insane cycle of relationships. We're doing the same thing and wondering, why isn't it working? Why isn't it working? It's you, sis. It's you, sir. It's not working because of you. Fuck your feelings is about accountability. And I'm always going to tell you what I did wrong in a relationship. I'm always going to tell you if something failed, what was my contribution to the failure? Okay, there's another question. So the next question, thank you guys for asking these questions. So Riley says, do you think, I'm sorry, Riley, I'm trying to understand this question. I hope I get it. I think you're saying align. Do you think align for elements of attraction? Can you rewrite the question, Riley, so that I understand? I know you're talking about the four elements of attraction. I just don't understand that other word. So you're saying that there are four elements of attraction: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual attraction. I 100% agree with you. In today's society, I would add a fourth: financial, right? Like, let's be clear. A lot of people are now making financial attraction a big deal. But I agree with these four elements, and we can talk about them: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. You know what would be interesting is if you rated yourself and the person, you evaluated a person on a grid. So I'm telling you something that I am doing. So again, I am back on the market. I was in a relationship for almost 3 years, and previous back on the market for say almost the last 8 months. And one of the things I sat down and I did is I started taking a look at the character traits that were really important to me. And what I've decided to do, I'm not in a space that's happening right now, but if I'm meeting men, I am using a chart and I'm evaluating the men on the chart of the values and the characteristics that I'm looking at. So I will put the people's names and I will rate them based on the things that I say that are important to me. Money is not one of those things that are on it, neither is height. Because again, anybody who knows me knows I won't lie. I love a tall man. My daughter's father is 6'7". I had her 22 years ago, so this has been a long time. My ex-fiance, I just said, is 6'9". My ex-husband was 6'5", and my other fiance was 6'3". I love me a tall man, but I also understand that that's not as important as their character. And so I have this list that I have created on an Excel spreadsheet that I'm using to evaluate men who come into my life to determine who's the best match for me based on character traits or other things that I think are important for me to have in my life. Finances again, and like things like height and stuff are not on there. And so taking a look at those four elements, I think it would be interesting for people to start dating and rating which of these elements are most important. Is it someone, again, who's emotionally mature and in tune with who they are? Is it someone who's spiritual? So someone who, religion is part of their life? Is it mental? Are you a sapiosexual and you require someone of higher intelligence? Or is it physical? I would recommend not rating physical as the number one. This is just my recommendation. I understand that saying that as an attractive woman seems very hypocritical, and I completely get it. But I think physical attractiveness gets someone through the door. My physical attractiveness has never kept me in someone's door. It's every other thing that you guys get to experience every week with me that has kept me through that door. So I love that concept. Again, evaluating people based on the traits that you think are important in a partner. And when you start dating people, put them on a spreadsheet. Put all of their names on there. Shelby, I'm talking to you. Put all of the names of the people who you're dating, the women that you're dating, that you're meeting, and start evaluating based on the values and characteristics and traits that you find that you want in a partner, and see how people land. People do that on jobs all the time. I used to be a corporate recruiter, and part of my job was to evaluate the candidates based on the skill sets and the character traits that people brought to the table. I did it all the time. right? And so why can't we do that in relationships? We should, right? Like we make this really hard for ourselves, and it's not. This is why I say to people, my dating pool is crystal clear because I've made it that way. I have put in the work that I needed to be able to attract the type of man that I want, to make sure that that man also wants me. And it doesn't always work in my favor. Sometimes the universe just doesn't align. But I am making sure that I'm doing the work on me to get the results that I want for my life. And it's really that simple. Riley said, wait, how tall are you? I'm actually only 5'5". So I'm 5'5". And however, and I be clear, it's funny because I do get a lot of flack for this. I date men who court me, right? And so I have been blessed and fortunate to date men who court me, and those men happen to be the various heights that I have said. That's just how it works. It's like, I live in Toronto, but I also date a lot of American men. And so the Toronto guys are always saying, you date a bunch of Americans, but I date the men that court me. My ex-husband was American. My ex-fiancés were American. The only person I named that was Canadian was my daughter's father. He's the only one. Culturally, we're the same. We're both Jamaican, and we grew up in Toronto. Of the four men I named, three were American and one is Canadian, because I date men that court me. Because again, those are the men who get access to me because of the way they court me. So that's really important. Okay, so a couple of things before, and thank you guys for sticking around. I actually thought I was going to only have an hour show, but I'm going to say a couple more things on this list that I want women to consider. And I'm going to go through it quickly. Number 7 of the questions I think women need to ask themselves if they want to get married is, what are your expectations of marriage? Number 8 is, how do you feel about gender roles? And if you do not believe that you want to have gender roles in your relationship, are you and your partner in tune with how you want to structure a relationship? I personally believe in gender roles. In my last relationships, we very much stuck to gender roles. I feel that as a woman, I bring the nurturing and the support and all of the things that I'm supposed to in my feminine form. And in his masculine form, he brings the protection and the provision and all of the things that he brings in that. But if that's not the structure that you want, you need to find out if that's the structure that your partner wants. And if they do not, then that's not the person for you. Do not marry them. And then number 9, and this is a question that we really need to ask yourself, are you a good person? Are you a good person? Are you a good person? In order to be a husband or a wife, you actually have to be a good person. And I hear so many dating horror stories of people who are just not good people. The book I, are you referring to the book I'm holding? Riley, I just want to make sure if you're talking, because if it's the book I'm holding, this is my book. So just let me know what book you're talking about, and I can answer the question. Let me know if it was the book I kept holding in my hand. Yes, okay, so Riley, this is my book. I'm going to put it as close as you can. So I have, if you do not know, in addition to doing this show, I'm also an author. I have 7 books. I'm lying to you. I have 9 books on the market. And so this is one of my books called No Handouts for Black Girls. It's like an hour read. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Google Play Book, Walmart has it, a bunch of other stores. But Amazon is my primary retailer. So again, it's called No Handouts for Black Girl, a love letter to us. And it talks about my life and my experience in the corporate world and the turning point in my life that I talk about. So I would love, yes, it is also on Kindle. So it's on Google Play Store, Kindle, all of that. Please support me. Again, No Handouts for Black Girls. I also have a 6-part series called the Sienna series, Sienna. This book also has an accompanying book. if you have a young Black girl in your life, unfortunately, I don't have it on my bookshelf, but I have a affirmation book that goes along with this that I created for young Black girls to be able to ensure that they have confidence within themselves, because I think that's important. I don't think we're instilling enough confidence into young Black girls to grow up into young, amazing Black women. And I want to be a part of dismantling this single parent, multi, the baby father thing that's going on in our community. I don't want to get into it. And so I also, with this book comes another book. It's the same thing, but it's like it's an affirmation book for young Black girls. So please support if you can. I would truly appreciate it because I work really hard to create good content for our community. So I have a couple of minutes. I'm happy to answer some more questions, or I can just, as usual, go to the silly tonight's conversation cards that I have. But again, before I go though, I'm going to ask the 9 questions again that I want Black women to ask themselves who are ready to get married. And the questions are as follows. Are you marriage material? If no, how are you going to prepare yourself to become marriage material? Do you want to be married, or do you want to be a wife? Number 3, what does being a wife mean to you? Number 4, would you marry yourself? Number 5, what does better or worse mean to you? Number 6, did your parents or parents prepare you for marriage? And if they did not, going back to number 1, what are you going to do to help prepare yourself? Number 7, what are your expectations of marriage? Number 8, how do you feel about gender roles? And your partner and you should be aligned. If you are misaligned, I would not suggest getting married. And number 9, are you a good person? Like in your heart, are you truly a good person? And I would add a bonus question is, how do you deal with conflict? Because marriage is imperfect. There is no perfect marriage at all. And how you deal with conflict is going to be key in order to have a successful relationship. I just can't believe you're 5'5". Well, I'm gonna stand. I don't know if you'll be able to see. I can't know if I can stand back. They can see me on God. You can see me on Instagram. Let me pull. Maybe I'll pull this back and see if you can see. I'm actually. Can you see? This is me. I'm 5'5". I'm little. I don't know if you can see me by the painting, but I am just 5'5". So it's very interesting. Again, I'm this little, and I date extremely tall. My daughter is actually because of course her dad's 6'7". My daughter is 5'11". My daughter has actually been taller than me since she was like in the I think my daughter and I have been the same height since she was like in the 5th or 6th grade. It's kind of crazy. But I'm going to sort of get these questions. I'm only going to ask a few of these questions. As much as I use these cards, I actually don't like them. You guys let me know if you want me to come up with my own cards. Maybe after I do the book, I will come up with my own cards because I actually really uh yes, thank you. Thank you. Riley said 5'5" and stats. Again, I tell people I meditate, stretch, work out, drink water, and mind my business so that I can keep myself together as a 44-year-old woman. So, God bless me. My daughter doesn't always like the fact that her mother is 5'5" and stacked. So, well, I'll tell you how it goes in Cancun. Her now being 22 and vacationing with her mother. It's going to be interesting. So I'm hopefully going to get through a couple of these questions. I actually hate these questions. I don't like the tonight's conversation cards because I feel like whoever wrote them is like really hurt. Okay, I don't care about this. Okay, here's a good question. You know what? I will take your question. Thank you, Riley. Riley said I should create my own cards. You know what? If that's the case, I'm actually not even going to read these tonight because these are silly, silly questions. Um, Riley, I am going to end it off with your question unless somebody else has a question. Thank you. Someone says I look much taller than 5'5" on camera. Someone said I thought you were tall. No, I'm 5'5". My daughter again is tall. My daughter's 5'11", but her mother is only 5'5". I get the illusion of being tall. I think because I often wear a lot of heels and I kind of sit tall. But I'm only 5'5", and I shouldn't say only. I'm proud to be 5'5". So to answer Riley's question on YouTube. Riley says, my question for you is how do you feel about people playing mind games, especially, I'm assuming you're saying especially if you're a genuine person. Um, that's kind of fucked up. I don't like that. I think I'm all about honesty and transparency. Um, and I think the issue is honesty and transparency requires vulnerability, and that is something that I think Black men and Black women don't feel that we have the luxury of being vulnerable. So I think what often happens is um, to protect your heart, people start playing games, but I think that only creates more bad than good. And as someone who is in love with love, like I love love. I love seeing people in love. I love seeing people fall in love. I love hearing stories about love. This is why I try to, like I said, if you are not following these particular channels on Instagram, please follow Dear Future Wifey Podcast. Um, please follow Black Love Page. There's another one I think it's called like Melanin Love. Like they show love stories and just beautiful love stories, and I love seeing any type of engagement. I love love, and so for me, someone who here's the thing, and I'm gonna actually take the question back in a second. There are people who are intentionally playing games and people who play themselves. I want you to take that in for a second. Okay? So there are people who intentionally play games and there are people who play themselves. And sometimes some of us who are saying that someone was playing games with us, we actually played ourselves because we are, and I'm going to speak as a woman because I always say I speak to women, I do not speak to men. I am not a man. And for any of you who are currently watching and would like to be a guest host on this show, a male guest host, please hit me up, fyftheshow@gmail.com, or you can also DM me on Instagram. I go under the same Fuck Your Feelings the show on Instagram. I would love to start bringing on some male co-hosts and having, again, like I like to call it, respectful dialogue. So going back to Riley's question, again, a lot of us will say that we were played with when we played ourselves. And so we've got to evaluate, did someone play us or do we play ourselves because we wanted to believe something that wasn't, right? There are a lot of women who will say, he didn't say we were in a relationship, but we did everything as if we were in a relationship. We were going out, we were having sex, he was bringing me around his friends, I went to his mama's house, but he never said we were in a relationship. In fact, he said we were not in a relationship and he was not ready to commit, but he was giving me everything as if we were in a relationship. And so I decided that we were in a relationship. I literally heard that several times today watching various shows because I do a lot of research for this show. In that case, you played yourself. You played yourself. You played yourself. Played yourself. I can't say that in my life I have, again, I'm going to speak for myself. I can't say that in my life I've experienced people who have intentionally been running game on me. And it may be because, as I said earlier in the show, I'm very intentional on the people I choose to bring into my space because I watch their actions, I listen to their words. A man for me is 80% actions and 20% words. That's how I evaluate men, on what they do and not what they say. And not only what they do with me, what they do with other people and how they've lived their life. If you show up to me and you have been irresponsible all your life, I don't expect you to be irresponsible with me. If you're a man who has gone out and had multiple children with multiple women and did not protect your seed, I'm not going to expect you to come to me and all of a sudden be a responsible man. So you're not going to come into my life. You've already made choices that no matter how handsome you are and how much money you have, you've already made choices that disqualify you for a place in my life because I have made decisions that have shown that I've been responsible with my womb and the choices that I have made. So sometimes we play our damn self. Okay, so the next question, and it's going to be, unless you guys have any more, it will be the final question. So Shelby has a question, and I'm just waiting for it to. Sorry, guys, my bra is sticking into my thing. Shelby's question is, okay, what is the first step you would advise Black women to make to get to healthy relationship dynamics that would lead to a healthy marriage? That's a very great question. And it's going to be a two-part answer. I would say the first step I would say is for them to determine what their relationship, and they're going to do so by writing a letter to love. This is something that I talked about on the show many weeks ago, and I'm going to repeat it. It was one of the most pivotal things that I did in my life was writing a relationship with love. And once they have deconstructed for themselves what their relationship with love is, if they are not already in therapy, they then will need to go to therapy because they're going to need to figure out if they have a complicated relationship with love, if they view love in some fairy tale fantasy world, however it is that they view love, they can reconcile it and make it real. So that when they're going into a relationship with a man, they are not expecting that man to be something he's incapable of being because, again, of how they view love. A lot of us are looking for love that we often did get from the foundational people in our life. I was lucky and blessed to have a father who is my first love, and I love that man. He is now in heaven, I pray. But that man showed me immense love and showed me what love is supposed to look like and love for a man and support and guidance and protection. I know what that looks like. I have a very healthy relationship with love. And, in moments where I didn't, I made sure I went to therapy. In moments that I felt, what, I'm in a space where this might not be a dynamic I want to be in, I went to therapy. Again, one of the best investments I made. So, again, to answer your question, Shelby, I would say I would encourage Black women to write a letter to love so that they can better understand what their relationship with the concept of love is. I would also add to that, I need them to determine how they love and how they want to be loved to see if those are actually congruent. Because if you love in a way that is counterproductive to how you want to be loved, you need to reconcile those two. And then like I said, also go to therapy. I think therapy is the best investment that Black women can give themselves to make sure that they're showing up in their best form to have a healthy relationship with the man that they want. So, Shelby, I hope that answered your question. It's the best answer I have. It's the most honest answer I have. And it's honest and raw because that's what I've had to do for myself. I don't give advice on this show that I haven't done for myself. I've written my own letter to love. I will be putting it in the book. I have asked my partner, how do they want to be loved? Because that is important that I'm loving my partner in the right way. I've asked myself how I want to be loved and that I'm showing up in the same form in my man's life as I want him to show up in mine. If I value peace, am I a person of peace? You know what I'm saying? If I expect certain things of you, I want to make sure that I am giving you the same from myself. So I hope that answers the question. I appreciate every single one of you who has shown me love. I thank all of you men on YouTube who have honestly been like supporting me and covering me with love. I have seen a lot of you who have defended me from some of the hate I get in the comments. And I do often get a lot of hate from men who do not understand what it is that I am doing. And so for you, Shelby, for you, Riley, for you, conceited motherfucker, a lot of you men who have been showing up for me on YouTube and protecting me from the hate, I see you. I appreciate you, and I invite all of you actually, if you would like to do be a guest host on the show, I would welcome you with open arms to help me to help change the conversation around back relationships. And I've got to, I really want to tag this because this is really important that I put this up. Riley, for those of you on Instagram, Riley just put up, I ain't gonna lie, this is the best channel and I've been in love one. So I appreciate you, Riley, for saying this. I do not take this platform for granted. I do not take my voice for granted. I've always felt that I was here for a greater good. And I think I found my calling. And like I said, fuck your feelings is about respectful discourse between Black men and Black women. And I'm simply one part of trying to change the conversation around Black relationships. All of you help me to do that by showing up and spreading the word about the show. So I appreciate every single one of you. Again, for those of you who have a Valentine, happy Valentine for you. For those of you who do not have a Valentine, I hope you still have an amazing day. The best love that you can give yourself is self-love. So love yourself, nurture yourself, put yourself in an amazing place so you can find that love that your heart desires. So I wish all of you an amazing week. Watch out for my post. I am going to be in Cancun this week with my daughter. I'm team the most. And so I will be doing a ton in Cancun, really enjoying life, and I will be sharing that with all of you. Again, if you would like to be a co-host, please DM me on Instagram at Fuck Your Feelings the Show, or email me at FYF, so again, FYF the show at gmail.com. I appreciate you. So I'm going to say good night to those of you on YouTube and good night to those of you on